So that heads over to the next demo. Actually the guy who sent in 2 questions, 2 different demos, and they're pretty long. So let's see how we do this. So this is from Matthew Ding, also known as Matthew Ding X3 on Twitter. There's a long question, boys. Bear with me. Hey Karrigan, I'm the Indian leader of ESC Open Team in NA. On Dust 2, we do a good job of getting cat control, getting info on the map. However, as an in-game leader, I find it tough to be effective mid-round calling to give us the best advantage going into a site. Often we go into cat execute, but we are caught out with 3 CTs on A, or we go mid to B, but fail to do the split probably. It would be useful to get your opinion on how to optimize our default and improve mid-round decision making. Thanks, and I attached the Dropbox link, blah 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 blah. So that's what he's asking about. So I'm trying to save NACS here, boys, okay? So let's try to scroll through and see how they're executing and what he exactly means with mid-round calling. Then I'll go into the server after and try to improve and help this team to become the next big NA hope. Not so much mid-on decision, long control, yes. We also can see that. There's anti-eco, that under control. Let's see here. They check long. No long control is open. What happened here meanwhile? And now they should push long, but there's open corner. That's a tough mid-run decision. Long rush. Yeah. Not so much mid-run decision there. Eco. Screw that. See here, long rush again. So yeah, basically what you want to do in this scenario when you do long rush, okay? It's always good to have one guy in tunnels. Because this is exactly what happens. You're doing long rush, the guy gets full control, now they can focus on A. You see up to the left here on the radar, they're focusing on A, he's clearing mid, so they think it's gonna be long, and he has very early information. And this just escalates really fast. The TT is already rotated, they know the bomb is there. Little impossible round to win. So that's why you want to leave one guy tunnels often when you do the long rush. They're getting actually this control they want. They're coming out mid, they get mid control. See here, they press a short back, like you said, they get the short control, they get control they want, but now comes the decision. So this is what they talked about. That cat control, they go B split and they go into to the split. And here they probably do a mistake, which most teams do. Yeah, nobody's holding the mid push, and he just gets easy kills. So I already there. It's really important. You always, when you do B split, you need to have a guy holding the smoke. It's really, really important. So that's one thing you can learn for the B split. That's just a side note. Getting out short, having open mid, pressure B, it looks good. Now they should know they're short because they have full long control. Nobody can play like this. So I think this AWP duel is not good to take. I think those 2 guys are pressure short why they go long. So this is a tough scenario because they are like disadvantaged the whole round. Now they get cat control, like they talked about. So what mid-round decision do they do now? So they have long here. This round should not be losable. Yeah, okay, this is losable like that. Okay, let's see. I have an idea what I can help them with. What generally everybody can do as a caller on this map. Dust 2 is basically the most mid-round call map you can have. It's a very simple map. So yeah, let's get into the server and I'll try to explain exactly what I mean. So Team Devastate. There's a few things here you should think about. So let's take the scenario you had a few times. You had the catwalk control, whatever we had. You had also mid control and catwalk control. The key thing is once you get this, a lot of stuff happens on the map. what you generally want to do is you want to have a 1-3-1 default. You have one guy tunnels, who's always like Robson out team, always on tunnels, listening on B what they're doing, because you need to know what utility to use on B. So if you want to do a B split, suddenly a smoke pops in B tunnels or in B doors, it's not really good. So the B guy has to be really good. So if he knows the enemies are smoking early B tunnels, after the smoke he will do this one way, like to pressure B. If he does the smoke, the CTs have to react towards it, they have to throw molo, they have to spam, maybe they even smoke, and at that moment they don't have smokes left, right? So that's what he needs to do in a general default to have freedom with his nades to pressure B. In the default, you can have different ways, but the key element is you want to have 3 guys in this area, okay? That's the area you want, and you want them to be able to trade for each other. They can do Molotov to take short, do a flashbang close, and peek with it, and go up and clear. And now, this is the scenario you always want as T, and you're always gonna get it unless the CT's plays really aggressive. From here on, it's all about mid-run call. And often in my teams, I base that off what information I get from the teammates, and also what I see with my own eyes on short. If the enemies haven't really used smokes on B, or they haven't used smoke on long, I explained the long lurk as well, this guy needs to read when they're taking long control. So what you want to do sometimes as long lurk is listening how they're taking long. Okay, do they molo like this? At least one guy long, right? It's in CSGO or just generally all maps, it's about the numbers game. You can always put numbers, 1 guy long, 2 guys long. You hear a Molotov and a flash long, you say 2 guys took long control. If you hear Molo and a flash and then a flash, it sounds like only 1 guy long, right? So you want to be having key information to in-game leader. So what he wants to do, this long guy, is to listen how they're taking long control. So when you later want to do a B rush, long rush or whatever, you know how to take it, because some people do the smoke here and do the Molotov behind blue, get flash above. Some people put a smoke here, CT, and they rush, take pit, to do this smoke pit. So the guy on long needs to realize how to take long control, so he knows how he can bait utility the best way, right? So if there's no nades long, 2 things can happen. It's an orb peeking, right? So the way you want to do it is like, if you hear no nades long after some time, you put a flash above, get the orb to shoot to get the confirmation, right? That's what your long player wants to do in this scenario. And if you hear no nades long, instantly you have to say no nades long. They can be short, so your team is taking far. Short control knows, okay, there's a big chance this is some kind of short setup, because they got boosted and only 1 guy took long control. That means they are gonna expect a lot more utility usage from the CTs, maybe some flash peek, stuff like that. So that's the general way you have to understand as T. You have to figure out where the numbers are, bait utility, and always rely on this guy has freedom with his nades to use it on B. This guy has freedom on long to use his nades. Obviously, this guy should save a smoke for later on, but the flashes he uses is to bait out utility and get some kind of information back. So, to the general mid-run calling. With that information based on the long lurk and the B lurk, this guy as a caller gets up short. Now he wants to what I'd often do if I'd heard from the guys, I ask, did they throw nades on B? He will say, yeah, smoke and molo. Then I tell him to pressure B with his smoke, or he does it himself. The same with long. No, they're not smoking long. That means, or if they're the Molotov long, that means if you're doing a short execute, we are gonna face Molotovs right here. They're gonna block us, they're gonna smoke us. Also, I've seen in pro games, people do the smoke as you're doing smoke CST, right? And he plays behind it. So, based all of that, I always like to do 1 smoke here. This smoke, right after you took short control T, because now you put pressure on the CT to react. So, meanwhile, you're like 3 guys here, you wait for the utility, the smokes, the flashes, maybe they come through it, maybe they'll do anything, and that gives you a very good opportunity to execute an A, where you can add a smoke like this here. You can do it different ways. The easy one is pin on view model, you put your grenade pin in right there, in this small gap. And I'm not gonna here to show all the nades, but that's just basic nades you can find on YouTube everywhere. So, the idea is that you always want to put down this smoke, Team Devastate, because that gives you information from the CTs If you see a Molo flying like this, you easy call, one ramp. If you see Molotov flying like this, probably only an AWP holding, you know? You can see on the Molotov from where it's thrown that you have information he's ramp or long corner. So then you just do the execute. Whatever execute you have in your strat book, that's one way to do it. So another way is when you do the default, taking the mid control, you do Molo close here. After the Molo, you get a flashbang from the AWP up here mid. You get the control out mid. What I also like to do is again, when you go out mid here, pressure on B-split. Do a B-split smoke. See how the CTs react. If you see nothing that don't react, you get your teammate to come with you guys and you do B-split, you re-smoke and you go up B-split. Because if you just put down these smokes, are they up here? Are they down here? The CTs need to react. And this is all you want to do as T-side industry. You want the teams keep using their utility and keep reacting, because the hardest position on this map is to rotate as CT. You have to help either towards the B split because it's hard to hold B split if you complete alone, or you have to commit on A because you have a good A execute. So if you get the CT guy to second guess all the time where the enemies are, then it's really tough to do the right call as CT, and that's what you mean with when there are 3 guys A, right? They had like here, if you do the B split smoke, one of the guys have to rotate down. And meanwhile, you're just waiting on short, you're listening. And then after the B split smoke is about to fade, you can do short execute. And like I talked about, probably the CT guy rotated down. He's out of position to kind of help A. So the key element on the T side, there's 2 calling, mid-round calling, is get the information. And if you don't get it easy, you have to pressure it. You have to do the smokes, you have to do the B-split smoke, wait to see if they're throwing utility, because there's many times where you do a B-split before you even out mid, and the CT just throws this Muller, right? And this just blocks the whole thing, and you're kind of forced to go back, and he will throw this Muller and say nobody out mid. His first reaction is probably going back to A. So this is actually basic ideas of how you can improve your mid-round calling in your team or in Faceit, whatever, that make sure you get in position where you can kind of cut off the map, like out mid, or you go on short. And just try it in the demo. I saw a few times you had long control here. Now, this is what we call in Danish the scissor tactic. You have long control, you have fear. Now, this is worst case scenarios for the CT. But you have to play clever. That means if you have long control, you go back to short, you get to this area, right? If you get to this area, you have to win the round 70% of the times. Again, then you can go here, Molotov here, or you can Molotov here. But what you want to do is you want to pressure short so much that the guy who's holding A is alone. And base case scenario is obviously that you come here, you clear this car with AWP, and then you get a flash, you get the AWP down pit, and now this is not losable round, honestly. It's 5-on-5, you have 2 guys on short and you have 3 guys long, or 2 guys long and 3 guys short. Then you have everything to win. So it's really important that you play off each other, but nobody commits. The key element of when you do the scissor thing, that you are short and long, is that you want the guys to kind of pressure both ways, but the second they meet resistance, they need to come down, let the other group work. So you have to see like 2 groups working. One of the groups will get an opening that's weak. Okay? So, yeah. I think when it comes to that, I think having the B execute, you need to have down. You have to mid-round call. In that scenario where you like feeling, okay, they used already Molotov short, they're really weak for the A execute, or they're not using any nades. Big chance they are playing AWP corner, and we just get an execute and flash, and we go towards A side. And here, you should use your lurks. You can always execute 3 guys on short. 4 guys would be the optimal, but when you do the short execute, you want to have a long lurk, and sometimes you also want to have mid lurk. So maybe he hears a rotation from CT while you're pressuring short, that he can go out and you can do B split because they're only 1A now, 1B now. You also want to have these lurks to create opportunities if you meet resistance on short or in mid for that matter of fact, right? So let's say you want to do a B split. You go 3 guys up mid, 1 guy tunnel. You're throwing so many nades, you call a board, and the second you call a board, you want this guy on long to take duel. You know, here's a 1-1 duel, and at this second, if the guy goes out long while you're doing a B split, but you kind of can't go out, you can't commit, and the guy goes out long and kills the long guy, you instant rush up short together 3 guys, and you kind of sandwich them so good. So use the lurks really clever, and they have to understand when to do it. If you're saying a board in mid, they have to go for the kill along, because that's how do you win a round now. The classic long guy, go kill, you know, purple go kill. So yeah, I think that's the way you can improve mid-round calling the best, because it is all about that and just experience basically, right?